Well, hello there. It is Wellness Wednesday here on CHLY and Wisdom Wednesday over on the podcast. I'm Sandra Sova here at the mic today, and I hope that whether you are listening to this live or at a future date, I hope you're doing really excellent. Me, I'm doing super good, as I often like to say, and I'm actually feeling good as I record this one day before it airs. I've got a bit of my energy back. Spring is on the way, and I, for one, am here for it. One of the things that spring brings, along with the budding trees and flowers, is the fact that we get more daylight and hopefully more of that glorious sunshine beaming in through the windows. You know, sometimes we can take on a change of season, particularly the season of spring, to take a look at our homes. And if not doing some actual spring cleaning, maybe take an inventory of our environment and see if we may want to change things up. Have you ever thought of your home, your surroundings, as either supporting or deterring from your wellness? That is our topic today, and in just a moment, you are going to meet Sara Fletcher, who is an intuitive home and lifestyle mentor, a certified Feng Shui Practitioner, and founder of Love Home Life. Sara works with individuals and families who feel overwhelmed and ashamed in their home environments to develop healthier, more peaceful, and empowering relationships with their homes and stuff, often resulting in a stronger ability to live up to their true potential in life. You are listening to Wisdom Wednesdays. Here now is my conversation with Sara. Welcome back. I am so pleased to introduce you to my guest today. Joining me is a lovely woman who I have come to know in this past year. Her name is Sara Fletcher, and she is the heart and soul and creativity behind Love Home Life. And Sara and I are just going to dive into our beautiful conversation about our environment and creating a space that fills and nurtures us and is in balance. Welcome, Sara. Welcome to Wisdom Wednesdays.
Thank you. It is such a pleasure to be here. Such an honor. One of my favorite topics, and I just love what you do and how beautifully the work that we both do pairs.
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that initially when I've started doing my show, it's just like, okay, so all things health and wellness and all of that. And today we're going to be talking about things like our home environment and Feng Shui and all of the energy around that. And it wasn't until I started experiencing some of the work that you do, having conversations with you and realizing that this is about our health and wellness.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what brought you into, I know you've always had an interest in the aesthetic of things and design. You were a jewelry designer before you got into this particular area. What sort of brought you into doing the work that you do today?
Oh gosh, it was a wild journey. Not your average, path in terms of how one chooses to discover what they're meant to do. But, like you said, I've always loved design. It's been a passion since I was a child. And, it was not until a more recent experience that I really understood just the impact that it has on our well-being and on our potential in life. About 4 years ago that I was diagnosed with an extremely rare brain tumor. And I went into the hospital, an otherwise, fairly healthy 40-year-old woman, and had a 14-hour brain surgery and came out of it like a completely unrecognizable version of myself. I had lost my ability to walk. I had no balance, no strength, no coordination. I had half my face paralyzed. I couldn't eat or drink with ease. And I had such an extreme case that the doctors really could not predict what kind of quality of life I could expect to return to. So, sometimes they can say, oh, it'll be this long. But my case was just like one of the worst they'd ever seen. So So a lot of uncertainty, a lot of overwhelm, trying to adjust emotionally and physically to all of these, overnight changes, essentially. So my life, once I returned home from the hospital, was essentially that of an invalid. I was just on the couch, couldn't really do anything or go anywhere, and I didn't know how long it would last. Of course, I tried everything that anybody would recommend to try for a strong recovery. So I had 9 different medical professionals from Western medicine to Eastern medicine, and was practicing, any kind of mind-body thing I knew of, any kind of gratitude practice, really working on, yes, the physical therapy and the occupational therapy and acupuncture, all of the things that I could do. And so you'd think, there'd be just a little improvement after weeks of doing all the things above and beyond. And there was none, just absolutely none, no improvement. Weeks later, I was still some days having like the worst day since I got home from the hospital. And so just starting to lose hope and feel really discouraged, and, looking around at my 2 kids and my husband and the impact this was having on them, just this dark, heavy, overwhelming cloud on our household. And, both kids just having these parents who were so absent. Here was my life living on the couch, and my husband taking care of both kids and my care and his very demanding full-time job. So it was hard. It was a very heavy time. And so really at this low point, one day I was just looking around my living room where I was every day. And of course, like sometimes we're in survival mode and we're not really paying attention to, like, who cares what the house looks like? I'm literally just trying to survive. But in that moment, I just looked around and really tuned in on another level to how it was making me feel. And in that moment, I realized it's making me feel like I'm in a hospital. It's making me feel like a sick person. And what I saw was like, medical stuff all over the coffee table. It was like the papers from the hospital and pills and things like that. And rug was all rolled up to accommodate the walker I had to use. And so it just wasn't like the living space I had before. The furniture was all rearranged to accommodate this life on the couch. So just the whole scene, it was like, bleh, yuck, I don't like this. And, in that moment, it was like, well, I know it's all here supporting me on a physical level, but at this point, I feel like it's actually holding me back. Like emotionally, it is telling me every single day, yep, you're sick. Yep, you're weak. You are dependent on everyone else. So I just had had enough and asked my family for help. Can you put this all, take it all? I don't want to look at the walker. I don't want to look at any of that medical stuff. Let's bring the rug back. I don't care. I'll figure it out. Bring back the, arrangement we had. And I just want it to make me feel like a strong, healthy, happy, totally independent person lives in this space. So they did all the things I asked, cleared away and brought in things and, made it just feel the way I wanted it to feel. And of course it felt better. But the next day when I woke up in the morning and looked around at this new environment, it was like I had just found and fixed the kink in the hose of my recovery. I felt so encouraged, so inspired, so lit up. I was like, I am not ever using that walker again. I don't even want to look at it. So I started walking around the house, carefully. It wasn't like I could leap around, but I was determined to just, reclaim my life at that point. I started to want to cook all my own meals and canceled the whole long meal train of people waiting to bring me dinners. I started practicing using the stairs so I could sleep in my own bed again and not live my life on the couch anymore. And from that day forward, I just kept doing everything that everyone had always said to do all along. But this time I was like, okay, there's something about the environment and weaving it in. And I continued to tend to the spaces around me and ensure that they were really making me feel like this is where a healthy, strong, happy, vital person lives. And from that day forward, my recovery flowed so fast and so steady that within 4 months, I could go out for a 10-mile run. So that was
That's incredible.
The journey. And, it was pretty soon after that I was in the midst of tending to my environment and in a part of the home related to career and life purpose. This is the best part. This light bulb went off, and you should become a Feng Shui practitioner. And I had completely surrendered what I was doing before because I didn't even know that I could work on the other side of this. So, the light bulb went off, and everything has just flowed so beautifully ever since. I don't even have all the words, but it's been a remarkable journey and just really showed me how the way we feel in our environment is either holding us back or it's really propelling us forward. And that was the experience I had that really showed me the truth of that.
Wow. I love so much about this story. I have shared with you we were having a little bit of a vulnerable chat at one point, and I had shared with you that my home environment is an area that I struggle with. And then when I think about that, because that's not where it's the reality of what it is, but it's not really in alignment of what I want to be. So I always have that. It's never resolved. It's never completed. My mind, body, spirit is never fully at ease if my environment is out of kilter.
Yeah. You just spoke to my favorite little visual. And this is something that just came to me during my recovery. It's this idea of the three-legged stool and how, we have it's like the being, the doing, and the receiving. So, if we have a vision of what we want, a goal or a dream or whatever, making sure our actions are in alignment with that. Everything we're, putting outward, and then thinking about the energy on the inside, or, what's happening in there, our mindsets, our attitudes, our chakras, our energy, just is it in alignment with that vision? And the receiving, what is our nervous system taking in? And what are the messages it is receiving? And so thinking about that receiving piece, we just haven't been conditioned to in our modern life. We just haven't. It has not been, it's always been more of a superficial discussion, when really it's it's your nervous system is going to be affected in some way. It's either lifting you, it's nourishing you, or it's draining you, it's overwhelming you. It might just be an imbalance. So much of it, I'm sure we'll get more into this, relates to the body. And that's why I so enjoy talking to people in the health field, because there's so much overlap, and it's so cool and so empowering to really look at your environment through this other lens.
The other thing that I thought was so powerful about your story was talking about how you went through this unexpected, traumatic, life-changing event. No one's saying that you didn't go through it all and that you were not a sick person at one time. But then as you move forward and you move to recovery, the signals and the messages that were around you were, I am disabled. I need all this help. So you were in an environment where everything around you was giving you that reminder of what you couldn't do and your limitations. And that was keeping you stuck in a mindset that then perpetuates, I believe, then the self-talk and the self-belief and a limiting belief system of what your potential was.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it brings me back to that moment. Like I remember that moment of sitting on the couch, and it's so interesting because, it's a real balance of creating spaces that work for you functionally. Like you still need access to the things that you do need to support you. And at the same time, have a way to create a space that reminds you that this is what I'm going for, though. Like I'm going for wellness, I'm going for strength, I'm going for this. And so to just keep that in mind, because a lot of times that's not on our minds. We're just thinking of the ease of use instead of all of it, the big picture of, ease of use, nourishing to all my senses, all of that. So, one of my other examples that's fun to talk about is, so my husband, he's pretty athletic and he likes to buy the Costco size Advil. And, if I'm sore, then he takes it a lot. And I'm like, I don't want to take it. I don't even want to look at it. So he would keep it kind of front and center in this cabinet in our bathroom area. And then, I started to notice my kids were like, oh, I have a headache. I have a headache. And it's like, well, you're like, 12 and 14, like you don't need Advil for all these things. So, I just noticed this little trend happening that look at the giant Advil sitting there so front and center, and suddenly everyone's needing it. So then, of course, this year we remodeled our house, and I was like, I don't want to look at all the things that are suggesting aches and pains and injuries and blah, blah, blah. And I compared that to how it made me feel to open up a cabinet and see all of my wellness supplements. Yeah. They all just say wellness, prevention. It's a totally different message. So just for kicks, I put that giant bottle of Advil down in a bottom drawer that's like, if you actually need it and think of it, then it's there. But instead of it just like calling to you, neither kid needed it ever. Like they never go get any. I think my husband rarely uses it too. Like it's still just a full bottle. So there you go. Just the reminders of, do you want to look at something that reminds you of aches and pains every day? Or do you want to look at something that reminds you of wellness and strength and prevention? And it is so fascinating. I've had several people speak to that after I posted about it once. And, they just used to keep all of their medications out on the counter for ease of use. But then the cumulative effect of looking at all the things that have to be fixed and, it's just holding in place more the energy of sickness and pain. And so just, still needing to find a solution that keeps them accessible for ease of use, but maybe they can be tucked away or surrounded by other things that remind you of wellness. So fun lens to look through, just, constantly changing and really fun to look at your house through this whole new lens.
So I'm interested in learning a little bit more about Feng Shui. What can you tell us some basics? Yeah,
so Feng Shui is, I'll tell you a few things because there are a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings. And so there are different kinds of Feng Shui. So some you might have heard it's talking about like north-south and in the northwest corner of your home and do this and things like that. So that's one kind. And I practice a different kind that isn't so much related to directions as it is, more a different kind of a Feng Shui Bagua, we call it. And so it's kind of like a framework that you use to understand how the energy is working in your home, how it flows, and sort of different qualities to each space, to each part of your home in all these different ways. So there are many different levels and layers and facets to it all, but it can provide a lot of insight about what parts of your home might be specifically influencing parts of your life in ways you hadn't ever thought of. So it's a lifelong practice. It's not like a one-time thing. A lot of people are like, I want you to feng shui my house. And it's like, well, it's not just a one-time thing. It's, you can have one session, but it's a lot more like, going to have a fitness trainer. It's like one is great, but you're gonna certainly have a different experience if you are tending to your whole body in all these different ways over a long period of time. So it's definitely more of a wellness practice, just as eating well, exercising, meditating, all the things. So those are a couple of things that a lot of people definitely have not been made aware of in the past. So I wanted to share those up front. So it's just really the practice of recognizing the relationship between your inner world and your outer world, and continuing to bring harmony and balance and a sense of like current needs being met. So, that's kind of the basic approach, is just look around, tune into how it's making you feel rather than, oh, is it in style? Is it clean? Is it dirty? Is it disorganized, ugly, pretty? Like, all those words are kind of more just a more superficial level of looking at it, when really we want to tune in as much as possible to like, how do I sleep in this space? How do I feel when I wake up in this space? How do I feel when I walk in my kitchen? Do I avoid my kitchen because it's always a big mess? Is there fighting that happens in a certain part of my home? Do I not want to have people over because my home doesn't make me feel good? But do I have a hard time working here? Like, so really looking at how is it affecting your quality of life and how you can function, and, what's possible for you in terms of, living up to your true potential. That's really what I love supporting people with. Like, how can we work with your environment to help you like clear away all that is not you, and to create spaces that really like show you who you are and that are going to evolve you into the highest version of you. So a lot of that is health and wellness. A lot of that is relationships. A lot of that is stress management and overwhelm, and even things like your daily habits, creating space to exercise. Not everyone has a space where they can do it, or maybe they're just not motivated because of things, or do you have a space to do your creative projects or your hobbies or whatever. So just looking at all the areas of life and making your home a place that supports you to be able to be honoring all of those parts of you and parts.
We've also had a switch with a lot of people moving into creating spaces for work in our homes, whether that's needing to take over, a spare room or the den or the, working at the table. A lot of people have been working from that. And so finding, again, that's another area where you can still do that, but you don't have to give up you don't want to create a work environment. We still want our homes to be that sanctuary, right? And so that's balancing what are the needs of what we need to function. But then if we're always circling back to, well, how is that making me feel? And I know that the way that we feel about something, and this is what is fascinating about in the wellness stat, it's not just here, because our thoughts affect our emotions, and our emotions then affect what takes place in our body. And I know that there is the blanket term that I use all the time for everything is stress. If I do not find effective ways to manage my stress, my chronic condition is going to flare. So stress can be your environment, and being able to redirect, so if you're finding that your home and your environment is causing you that stress on an ongoing basis, if you just ignore it, that's you can feel that that's not, it's not a freeing place to be. It's a drain. It's small or large, depending on how much of an issue it is, right?
Yeah. And it's universal law that our environments always mirror our reality. So much of what is happening in our environments, whether it's clutter or imbalance or excess, whatever it is, it's sending us that message. And that's like the response we're being faced with on a cumulative level. So I think you and I had talked about how the energy of clutter is like, a form of stagnation and inflammation. So it's very, very paralleled in that sense, that a lot of chronic inflammation is such a common thing. And, I know that at times autoimmune disease, like it runs in my family in various ways. And, I had flare-ups of some kinds in the past too. So I found this so interesting, just relating everything about our environments to what's the energy of my home, and even things like, color and shape and imagery and, just everything that's like yin and yang balance, like a lot of overlaps with acupuncture. We have, 5 elements in Chinese medicine. And so just a lot of different ways. Like, I just need to see it as all as opportunity. Like, to some it might be like, oh, my environment's so overwhelming. But to me, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much amazing hope and opportunity that nobody knows about it. I have to tell them because it makes such a difference to your nervous system. It's kind of like when you're so hot and then you finally get something cool like that is the kind of like relief you can feel by making changes in your home through, these types of balancing and clearing and harmonizing and all that.
When we did chat and you did talk about that, then making the correlation between clutter and inflammation, that clicked for me, and that inspired me to. So a lot of the things for humans in general, and speaking for myself included, sometimes we need more than just the intellectual. Sometimes we need something personal, like a why or a reason or a motivation to do something. And I know that I sort of, I don't know, not play a game with myself, but I do like to set challenges for things. And now I'm really motivated to want to deal with my clutter, because as someone who is plagued with bouts of increased inflammation and is always striving to reduce inflammation, and I understand I can do that by movement. I can do that by what I think and feel and eat and consume. And now I can also add another layer, because when I look around to the different areas in my home, some feel better than others, some are more relaxing and conducive, but I have an issue with clutter, and labeling that now as like a sort of an inflammation in my home gives me more of a, I don't know. I shouldn't have to have a reason to clear up my clutter now, should I, Sarah? But I don't know. That's just the way that it just clicked for me, right?
Yeah, that's what I have found to be so true across the board with, in the few years that I've been really putting this message out there, I am just watching eyes light up, like there is something that takes the reason to a whole new level and like kind of shifts the priorities. Like, we just haven't been shown in many cases or told in many cases that our environments are important. And so, there are so many reasons for it, from, what we've inherited and cultural conditioning and trauma. Like there's so many layers for our homes to be what they are. And so I'm always inviting people to have lots of grace and compassion. There's so much stuff that goes into it, and, no judgment, no blame, no self-criticism, like no need for any of it, because it's all just like opportunity for curiosity and compassion and reflection and growth.
Yes. And it's just like you said, there can be so many reasons why we have our homes the way that we do. And if you are looking at that as, it doesn't need to be permanent, it can be just like you switch it up with a hairstyle or with fashion or with things like that. When you find something that's in flow and that works for you, we can I just love the idea of thinking to move from having areas in your home be a stressor or things that you avoid, to things that actually help to nurture and to inspire you. What sort of advice would you have for someone that's hearing this and saying, "Oh, I need that, but I'm overwhelmed." Like it's such a huge endeavor.
Yeah. And that is a very common feeling among so many people. One favorite piece of advice I like to give as a starting point, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, the whole home is a total chaos zone, is to start with one small space. I mean, it could just be as small as like one corner of one room. And maybe it's like, for example, one comfy chair by the window. Start there. And then add little things like, I'm going to put a plant here to bring in a little bit of like fresh life, or, some flowers or whatever. Think of all 5 physical senses. Like, how can I nourish all of those in this little space? Maybe some essential oils or candle, or I'll just, wear some lovely lotion and make some sacred space and time to be right here. 5 minutes of meditation. So often it's like busy, overwhelmed people, and so it just can serve them on so many levels. And to just make sure like even the line of sight, like, okay, if I'm in
Mm-hmm.
this chair, maybe I can't deal with the whole room, but maybe I can just set my sights on like that one really pretty picture or that one view or something. So whatever it is, just consider all your senses in that space. And then what happens naturally is it becomes an invitation to really start like some new self-care practices for a lot of people. Like, okay, now I have a space. I will meditate for 5 minutes. Maybe it's a spot for journaling. Maybe it's a spot for, who knows, just sitting or reading or, some more stillness and mellow time that that a lot of people struggle to build into their lifestyles. And then what happens is that just starts to grow. It's like, oh, my 5 minutes became 10, and my meditation then added journal on top of it, and then that added this on top of it. And so it's like habit stacking starts to form, even if it's over a very slow period, like some new foundations start to take place. And then the same thing in the environment. It's like, well, I do like how good that chair feels in that corner. So now I'm going to do this next little 3 cubic foot area next to it. And so it just invites you to start continuing to move that nourishing energy to keep working with it so that it becomes more nourishing to you, instead of like, that you're just disconnected and ignoring it and draining it, that it becomes really intentional and really serves you on these deeper levels. And then often other people in the household are like, ooh, I like the way that looks. And I notice the difference in you when you're meditating and having time to read. And so maybe we should do another part of the home. And so they're kind of organically starts to unfold once you just start with one small corner of a space, or maybe it's the top of your dresser, just so that when you wake up in the morning and you look up, it's like, well, that's pretty, instead of like, oh, there's my stacks of papers, I'm totally overwhelmed.
It's a totally different feeling. It's like it can really free up so much. And I think part of the thing too, it's seasonally, as we're leading into spring, there's, the term spring cleaning and refreshing and getting ready for, the bulbs are starting to, we've got some crocuses trying in the backyard to come up. And it's just like that time for spring and renewal is a chance that I think that, a lot of us can maybe take a step back and be an observer of our environment, because that's another thing too, habit, whether it's just for the way that where we hang our coats or what we do with our shoes, or how our flow. A lot of it is that there's a habit. So now as we go into spring, maybe start thinking about that refreshing, and take a step back. And like you said, Sarah, how it looks, but also how that feels, and tapping into that. And especially if you're picking up on anything where there's, I think that I know for me, if I'm looking at a room or a space, and I know that there's something that I feel I should tend to, I can't really relax into my other activity as much as if my environment was more feeling that groovy feel, being able to observe that and start asking questions and finding it and cluing in that it's not just a visual. It is our environments are, and we spend so much time in our homes. And so it's an interesting area to study.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's very common for, I tend to work with women. It's not exclusive, but, so often it's like women have a sense that, I've been playing small, and I have a fear of, getting visible, and I have a fear of this. And so when I look at what's possible for women who are like, I want more for myself, but I'm afraid, and things like that. And so the environment and clutter and, it can be kind of a comfort zone thing to keep yourself small and numbed out a little bit to some of the, fears and discomforts of growth. There's also a really common truth that worthiness comes into play. A lot of people don't feel worthy of having a space that makes them feel good, or they just haven't thought of it in that way. And then they start to declare it like, oh my gosh, that's it. There you go. And then, that affects everything. Like, the way you care for your body, the way you charge for your services. Like worthiness is when I am making choices from a place of I am sacred. Like I have a sacred body. It is like an honor to get to be here and have these choices. And I am wanting to choose, food and exercise and sleep and wellness because I honor who I am. But oh my gosh, that's so not how I always was. Like, but just to feel the difference of having practiced and just tuned into this worthiness piece and seeing like it's a lot easier to make a choice when I look at it through that lens. And I have had clients who had long periods of being frustrated by carrying more weight than they wanted to. Just looking through their environment, looking through that lens, it got them so inspired to totally create space that made them feel lighter, made them feel more empowered, made them feel more energized. And people lost all the weight that they had been struggling to lose, within a few months. It was like, oh, I just needed that. It's like my same story of like, I was just stuck. Like I felt like I was doing a lot of things, but like there was this other puzzle piece that I hadn't found. And because, much of the reason that people have clutter is we're just living with too much stuff. It's not that it's just out, there's just too much in our homes. And so when you think of the energy of excess, we live in a culture of so much excess, and the energy of excess in our homes, and knowing that mirrors what's happening in our bodies. So creating a sense of feeling so much lighter in your home really empowers that on a physical level in our bodies too. So just so much opportunity to work with our environments in ways that completely transform our health and well-being and who we become. I didn't know I was going to be doing this.
It's just so fascinating. And I think too, I mean, I just started thinking about people that are going through some sort of change or transition. Let's say the kids have moved out, or let's say they are single after being in a relationship, but they're in their same home. A lot of the things, or you used to be a working person, now you're semi-retired or something. And it's just like, even though your home you may feel, let's say you don't have an issue with clutter. Let's say it's all, but is it optimized as well as it could be? And a lot of things, if we were be looking at this through the lens of a totally different way of how we're putting things together as we evolve and change, it's just an opportunity to look at those environments and see what could be possible with sort of opportunities like this can really, I mean, it opens your eyes. Sometimes we don't know we're blocked or stuck in an area. And that's what I just loved hearing about your story, from changing it from, wow, this is a sick person's environment, into hell no, I want something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're so right. It's one of the fundamental principles is everything's always changing. And so that's a huge piece, some of the conditioning that many of us have experienced. It's like, when I get my home done, when I finish my home, I just want everything done. And it's like, I really encourage you to not think like that if at all possible, because there is no done. It's kind of like saying that we're done at some point. Like, we will be growing forever, right? Yeah. Until our last day, and our homes are growing right along with us. Like, as we age, as our kids age, as our interests change, as our energy changes, as our abilities change, like, it should ideally always be staying current, supportive, nourishing, balanced. And, there are things that will have worked for us for a long time. And then they just stop working anymore because I've changed. Things have changed. And now that thing, even though it was expensive, even though it was nice, even though I loved it, just doesn't align anymore with who I am and where I'm going. So, there's so many examples of reasons why we keep things, and they're just holding us back. That's what I can say.
There's so many wheels turning around up here. I'm just going to be providing just a different lens and a different approach, with a motivation And Sarah, I'm so grateful because you've turned wanting to create the space in my home as one of the tools that supports my wellness, and anything that supports my health and wellness, I can get right behind that. I can put time, energy, and resources into it because it's one of my core values. It's something that is so important to me. So now I've just been given a new modality to work with, which is the environment that I'm in all the time. And it's just like, wow, I'm so excited because it's not something that it's just not something I connected the dots on with before.
Yeah, it is the most fun thing. And, at this point, I'm not exaggerating at all. 100% of people who I have worked with have had profound experiences. Once you see your environment as, an extension of yourself and all the opportunity waiting for you, that's what has changed, whether it was relationships or health or some sort of clarity, or suddenly like flow just started when stuckness was the theme for so long.
Yes.
Like, oh my goodness, like things are moving and, just rolling with it, like allowing things to evolve. And that's really what Feng Shui is. I've always loved this little nugget. It reveals what needs to be revealed for you to live your best life. So, for some, they might start working on things and then they're like, everything's getting worse. And it's like, it's kind of like a detox, how like, you might be doing some detox and then your skin freaks out and totally freaks out, or, you get all these problems. It's like, it's part of the detox to kind of like get a tiny bit worse before it gets better. And so some people do have that experience at first and they just assume it's not working. But if you zoom out and look at the big picture, it's like, oh, but I had to go through all of those things, let go of all of this, go through that experience to then end up where I was. It's like I had to go through a brain tumor to find my life purpose, things like that. So
we're not recommended for everyone, but it is, everyone has a different way. You mentioned one of my favorite words that applies to so much is being in flow. And when you have that ease, when you are in flow, it's like things just everything, you don't have that resistance. You and I have some shared experiences. We were in a wonderful writing group last year, and it was that finding that flow to be able to have things that get rid of whatever it is that's blocking you. And to be able to have that, if we're, we want to do that with our spiritual and our meditation practices, we want to do that with what we put into our bodies, what we see in our environment, what sort of things we're consuming in the on social media and what that. So now take that, expand that on to being in flow in your beautiful home and creating an environment. And it doesn't have to be creating. This doesn't have to at all. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Sarah, it's not about going and buying beautiful things, right? In fact, you can maybe get rid of some stuff.
That's the other thing that's so lovely about it, is that so much of the time it's not, you get to use what you already have. And it's often just a lot of letting go. And, the more you're tuning into the reasons why, and it's not just like superficial cleaning, but like, I'm letting go of this because it means this. I'm letting go of this because it means this. You really change all the energy inside and outside of yourself. And yeah, I'm all about, even if you are ready to switch things up, secondhand is such a great way to go because you get bang for your buck and it's better for the environment. So, a lot of people feel stuck, like I can't have a nice feeling home because I can't afford to. It's like, no. You can't afford to. There's so much good free stuff out there, and so much that can make you feel better just by exiting it out of your house.
You said you work with primarily with women. What is it? How do you help clients? What are some of the things that people can find through you?
Yeah, people come to me with different reasons. So, often they feel a sense of stuckness in their life, or there's just sort of a big scary thing happening, like this relationship seems like it's not going to make it, or my health is having issues, or my kids are having issues, or, something's been going on a while and they just aren't finding the relief that they really want. And so they may be reaching out to see, is there something I can do in my environment? So that's really, I'd say, my specialty, and my favorite approach is helping them identify what they can do in their environments to help nourish these specific areas of life and, totally change the energy. And that has been amazing for people, from health to sleep to, marriage that was on the edge of divorce to now being better than they've ever been. Kids who were not doing well, like really struggling socially, academically, like major difference just after changing some stuff in their bedroom or in some other parts of the home that are related to that. So that's probably the approach that it would be like my signature approach. And then, some people are like, oh, I just moved and I would love to have it set up that way. And so, I can help people in that way, but I'm not a licensed designer. It's not as much my area of expertise to set something up for the first time as it is helping diagnose where some of these problems might be held in place and to kind of come up with a environmental healing protocol, I like to call it. So that's really what I do more. And then, little by little throughout this year, I'm unfolding some new courses and things. So a lot of people, they just aren't ready to have someone see the contents of their home and their spaces. There's a lot of shame and resistance to that piece, to working one-on-one. So I'm trying to honor, the readiness levels of where people are, and to be able to offer some support on different levels. So for people who, may either want to just have more DIY opportunity or aren't ready to share photos, then some, online mini courses, things that people can do just to like really deepen their awareness and get some really empowering insights about, each room in the home, or specific to health or specific to relationship or whatever. So that's really what my joy is like helping people change the relationship with their home so that it's like a whole different thing. So that it becomes a space that makes you feel as good as you feel when you're on vacation. Like that's what I want everyone's home to make them feel like as relaxed and joyful as you feel on vacation, but every day.
Yeah. I like that you, the relationship that you have with your home, because that does, that makes a lot of sense. And I also like the idea of starting out even just like with that one corner, a chair, and creating a special space. And what's your favorite space in your home? What's your favorite room?
Well, we had a really interesting, we've been in our house for about 15 years, and but it's a long story, which I won't go totally into, but for 14 years, it was in a pretty like raw state. Like I made it really cute, but it basically was a lot of subsurfaces like plywood and, a lot of interesting plastic, material. So I just kind of made the best of it and went all over it. So this year we just finally gotten to do a really significant remodel, and it's really become like the whole thing feels like it kind of takes my breath away. And, I'm a total secondhand person. It's not like it's fancy stuff. Everything was secondhand, but the way it makes me feel now, walking through really every single space now. And I haven't felt that way, before. It was like, oh, this, the dining room, or, I had little pockets, but now as we're sort of finishing up this remodel, I'm just really savoring the way it's making me feel, because it's just a whole other level, and it wasn't like I was unhappy with it before. It's like, I'm doing what I can with what I have and the time I have and the resources we have, and that's just what I encourage everyone to do, because there will come a time when bigger change can happen, and that will be exciting too. But it was just such a massive up level that I think right now my bedroom is a space that it was kind of a space before that. Often it was like oh, I don't know where to put that. I'll put it in the bedroom
Mm-hmm,
till I
mm-hmm.
figure it out. So it kept kind of becoming that place. And I was like, that should be such a total sanctuary space of all the spaces. So
Mm-hmm.
it's finally experienced a massive shift. And now it feels very sanctuary like on another level now that we have, floors and not just plywood on everything. So yeah, just really being extra intentional through all of my spaces now, like purging on a whole other level. And clutter wasn't so much a struggle
Mm-hmm.
before, but just knowing there's still more you can always be doing. And
Yeah.
like at one point somebody used this analogy of like squeezing out the last of the toothpaste from the tube.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, that's what I'm doing right now. Like going through with such
Yeah.
a shove, and then knowing that I don't want it back, changing the consumption habits at the same time, and the shopping habits, and the,
Yeah.
tuning in so much to any patterns I had before that were related to, making myself feel better in some way
Yeah.
that wasn't my highest self. So yeah, just really going through a whole new level of intention, and lightness and openness. And that's proving to make me feel very different.
Mm. And when in thinking and working with your clients, is there a particular area of the home that you really enjoy working with, or really see a lot of like a big switch for clients if they should, or is it just so individual?
It does vary. I'd say it's very common for people to not love their bedrooms. So that's a fun one, because it is a really significant space. It's, you do spend time in there, even if a lot of it is sleeping, but the way it affects your sleep. And then, the first thing you see in the morning sets the tone for your day. And so it is really exciting to hear the feedback from people who are like, I'm sleeping better. My relationship has more intimacy, like all the things that can improve just by changing the way your bedroom feels. So that's a fun one. And then I also do love helping people with kitchens, because I can see the way that affects like their motivation to eat well, or to cook longer meals instead of pop something in the microwave, convenient style, or grab a bar on the go. But it's like, oh, I like my kitchen. I want to hang out in my kitchen now and like prepare beautiful soups, and, just taking their nutrition to another level, making it a place to connect as a family. Whereas, sometimes it was just too chaotic before, and there's nowhere to work, and, lots of frustrations around kitchens too. So just helping people kind of reimagine the ways it can be used in ways it can feel more inviting, instead of more like, I hate my kitchen, because a lot of people do. Yeah. So I'd say those two have been some of my favorites. Just seeing the way that has rippled out to improve their quality of life.
This spring, I'm going to clear up that inflammation of clutter. I think that might be the title of this episode. Get rid of the inflammation of clutter, or something like that.
Yeah.
Because anything else that you would like to share with our listeners today?
Oh yeah, just that our homes, they can just be opportunities for us to become our most. It's like a process of self-discovery. So like. The more you tune into what isn't serving you on the deepest levels, the more you're willing to face the discomfort of letting go of things, the more you're willing to explore the reasons why, with no criticism, just all compassion and all curiosity, and, willing to give yourself whatever layers of support will serve you best. For some people, some therapy might be a really fantastic addition to decluttering, because yes, there's like, deep grief and trauma, and, family relations, and like, they're so complex relationships with our stuff. So, oftentimes support is a really a valuable piece that a lot of people just would think like, I don't need that. But, if you really are if it's a really important value of yours to give yourself, all the opportunities you can to continue evolving to your most vibrant, most alive, most authentic, most on purpose, intentional, version of yourself, opening up. The home is such a beautiful part of that path to see, how it can help you move forward instead of hold you back. Fascinating and empowering, and really, it can be uncomfortable and hard because, we got to face some stuff, some of our shadow stuff, but it's all possible. That's what I love about it. It's all possible.
I hope that this has sparked the interest and the curiosity for our viewers and listeners the same way that it has with me, because I think this is an area that we can really lean into and find a lot of benefit. Sara, this has been amazing. I am so grateful that you were able to take the time and have this conversation with me today. Where's the best way for people to find out a little bit more and to connect?
My website, you can find probably every avenue. So that's one easy place to direct everyone to. It's lovehomelifecenter.com. And, you'll find options to subscribe to a newsletter, join a Facebook group, Instagram and Facebook. I'm not always super active in all of it, but go to the website, start there. And then I am pretty active in my sanctuary Facebook group. So if you're wanting more things, you'll find the info there.
And I will put those links in the show notes for the YouTube and podcast version. And again, this has been a delightful conversation. I know I have learned a lot. I'm very inspired to see what I can create here in my home. So thank you again so much, Sara, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such a joy to have this conversation with you and to just work together to inspire others toward wellness.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Well, that wraps up another show. If you are interested in learning more from Sara, you can check out her website at lovehomelifecenter.com. I will put the link in the show notes. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I will be back with another Wisdom Wednesday episode in 2 weeks' time. And until then, I am wishing you wellness.